It's a little bit of wind, but I'll try this. We'll see how breezy it gets. So as we kind of gather around, just in terms of run of show, we're going to hear from our COO and then some of our county and state leaders, and then our director of services, Carol Pierce. And it's kind of a preface. This is a really big deal, so we're going to take our time to talk about it, and we'll explain exactly why. But it's also not a surprise to anyone, but it's actually a done deal now. And so we're excited to move forward. So I think with that, let's go ahead and get started. And so I want to begin by thanking everyone who's here today. We're going to introduce all the guests behind me, so we'll hold those introductions until their speaking time. But today we are here to announce that the city of Albuquerque has officially bought the Gibson Medical Center, the cornerstone of our Gateway Center network. And so for everyone who lives in central New Mexico, this is now a public asset for all of us in central New Mexico and Bernalillo County in the city of Albuquerque. And it's now something that we will be able to utilize to its fullest, in perpetuity for the good of the public. And no matter what happens to this site, or no matter all the details in terms of what we're going to be doing, we do believe this is a tremendous investment for our city and for the public good. And so we're grateful that this deal finally was able to close. Now, today we know also, specifically with respect to some of the purposes of the Gateway Center, that we have roughly 5,000 homeless people. Depends how you count them. It also depends what you call them: unhoused, homeless, unsheltered, folks in need. This challenge is huge. We know this challenge has also gotten way worse during the pandemic. So, like a few other things, we had a problem going into the pandemic, and now the problem is even worse. And so this facility could not come at a better time, in a more time of need for our unhoused community. Now, we know right now that we roughly have been able to shelter 900 people in 5 different hotels around the city, and about 300 or so in our West Side shelter. Now, to put that in perspective, that is more than our city has ever housed. And we do this with a lot of partners. So it's a credit to Heading Home and Hope Works and all of the entities that are going to be helping us with this facility. But at the end of the day, we know that we need at least 500 more beds. And that's even more than this whole facility can handle. So I just want to let folks know that this is a major step in helping all unhoused, homeless, unsheltered in central New Mexico. And with the support of the voters, that's why this is happening. So as a reminder, I did run on this concept in my campaign for mayor 4 years ago. And I was grateful that the voters gave me a chance to try and fulfill that vision. Then we put this on the ballot. Way back, remember, it was even a question, okay, should the city make a major investment in homelessness with a facility like this? And the voters said yes. They gave us $14 million to buy this facility. And so we are honoring that commitment, not only that I ran on, but also that the voters approved 2 years after that. And we're doing it with the purchase of this building, and we're doing it in step with the... So for us, this is actually about doing something, not just talking about it, not just discussing it, not just arguing about the details. This is about action. Now, I also want to emphasize that, like anything, it's going to take time to get it up and running. So, now is the part where we have to figure out how to operationalize it, what services are going to be in here, what services won't be, what other facilities we're going to coordinate with, and how all of that's going to work. So now, essentially, the real work begins with respect to providing services. Our job was to get this facility so that we can actually make this useful to the sheltered, the unhoused, folks suffering from behavioral and mental health all over central New Mexico. That job is done today, but the real job of making that actually usable by people begins today. So we're going to talk about the legislators' role in this. They played a huge role, especially this session. And so, again, a little bit more on that as we introduce the individuals who are here to speak to that. But some of the folks that aren't here, I do also want to give some special mention to the Bank of Albuquerque, French Funerals, New Mexico Mutual, P&M, and Presbyterian, Jimmy Doskalos, and Nick Cadmuson. all of which played a financial role in making this happen. And the businesses that I mentioned, of course, are putting in $500,000 into rehabbing and utilizing this facility. But most of all, I want to thank the public, again, for believing in the vision that I had, which was very simple. It said that for a decade, our city had neglected our unsheltered and unhoused. And we had neglected it for a lot of reasons. But one reason is because we were afraid to take a big step. And I said, we are not going to be afraid to do that anymore. And I said, just to make sure, we'll send it to the voters. So again, I want to thank the voters for passing the funding to purchase this facility 2 years ago. Now, the net price was, of course, about $15 million, and we also have to put money into rehabbing the facility. But in total, this represents the largest capital investment that Albuquerque has ever made for the unhoused. And so no matter how you cut it, that is a major statement about the fact that we have to deal with one of our biggest priorities, and we have to deal with it in a real and meaningful way. Now, we also know that this is on top of the $6 million, of course, in supportive housing that we continue to do. And of course, in the housing vouchers. I want to remind everyone, this is just meant to be a gateway. This is supposed to be a place where people can go so they have a roof over their head. They have clean water, they have a shower, they're safe. So then the partners can meet with them and get them the help that they need. So this was never meant to be a permanent home for anyone. It's meant to be a gateway to services that can then lead to people enabling and changing their own lives. I also want to mention about a third of this facility is currently in use. We expect that to continue, including for behavioral health. And so as you can see, this already is providing these kinds of services to the community. But now we're going to be able to do it in a coordinated way that matches the spectrum of services that we're committed to providing, along with our partners at the county and our public hospital, UNMH. Now, I also want to mention a couple of other items. One is a little bit just around some of the myth busting that we need to do with respect to sort of the number of beds or the details around, what's actually going to play out here. And I just want to mention that we're totally committed to doing that in an open and transparent way. And we're going to have different community meetings to discuss this. We're also going to have our providers involved, just as we did originally when we looked for sites. Remember, this process actually included forums and community meetings in the convention center. This was 2 years ago after the bond issue passed. And the community actually identified this as one of the top sites they wanted. And so all that information is available and online. We also did a survey that thousands of Pequeños filled out, and they all said this actually was one of the top sites as well. So we're glad we at least got one of the sites, right? We tried UNM, didn't work. We tried Wells Park, didn't work. But I think we got the best answer because this building is already in existence, right? We don't have to build something new. Now, and it's already providing a lot of the services that we need to expand. So for those two primary reasons, I think we actually got the best answer. And we did that by taking input and taking time, but also not being afraid to act when it came up. Now, let me also mention too that this facility is huge. It's 570,000 square feet. This is now the largest building the city owns. It is bigger than City Hall. The only exception is the Sunport. So to put that in perspective, we will use this building. We're going to use this building for good. We're going to use it for public services. But to honor the fact that we invested our city money in this, we are going to use this building, and that's the right thing to do. Now, how we use it and in what capacity remains to be worked out this summer. We also know that our administration believes in experimenting. That means we might try things that might stop after 6 months. It means we might try things as a pilot project and then expand them if they work. So we're going to test things. We're going to experiment with things, and we're going to find out what works best over time. Now, let me also just mention before I hand it over to our COO that the Gibson Medical Center, also, of course, former Loveless Hospital, it is kind of a special place in our community. And so, for over 100 years, this facility actually healed people. Many people visited their loved ones here, including myself and like pretty much everyone in town. And in fact, I was laughing that I had confession here once, which is another whole story, but had to do with getting married and whatnot. And so that is my last memory in the Gibson Medical Center. So we'll make some new ones. But anyway, everyone has memories of this. And I think everyone has memories of this center. Sometimes it might have been a place of sorrow, but it was also a place of hope. And it is going to be a place of hope again and for decades to come for the city of Albuquerque. And I think that is a special thing for everyone who lives here and everyone who's going to be here for generations to come. So I think with that, let me just share, we have some thoughts to reiterate at the end, but from my perspective, you know, a lot of people helped with this project, and we're going to talk about a lot of them. But I do want to begin with the guy who really put this deal together. And, you know, he has his stamp of Lawrence Railness on a lot of things, from the Rail Runner to the art project to our pool property. And again, here, another landmark major project under his belt. So we really appreciate all of his work and all the people that helped make this happen. But let me hand it over to our COO, Lawrence Rail. Lawrence.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you all for being here. For the better part of Mayor Keller's administration, we have been working on this issue of working to help our community with the challenges that we have as it relates to our homeless population. And as anything else goes with government and with the work that we do, is that there's always a requirement, and an important piece of that is to work with our community and to find out what's happening in the community and how do we engage our neighborhoods and others who obviously are stakeholders in what we do as it relates to our homeless population. So when we began the process the mayor described earlier, we talked about a gateway facility, a facility that is available so that folks can come in, get services, as the mayor said, find a place of safety, get cleaned up, et cetera, washed, et cetera, but most importantly, that we can connect them with services. Hence the name Gateway. And the Gateway facility that we are working, or that we're looking at as it relates to this building, is an opportunity to make that connection and to bring people together to find a way to help them, with the ultimate goal of putting them into housing and giving them an opportunity to move ahead and to have a fruitful life, if you will, in our community. So when we began the process, we looked at different locations across the city. We had community meetings, as the mayor indicated. We actually brought in folks to the convention center back before the pandemic, and we had lots of people from across the city come in and talk to us about the issues with the homeless. What are the services that are needed? Where does it make sense to locate these facilities? Where can we find opportunities to give them the best chance of getting the services that they need? So things that were important were access to public transportation. Where are the public corridors where we can get public transportation? Where are there services already, if you will, that might help augment whatever we need to do? As you can look up at the sign here, the Turquoise Lodge has if you will, already a presence here at this site. So utilizing what we have as natural assets in the community, et cetera, that began the conversation. As we move forward, as the mayor described, we looked at 3 different sites. We looked at the site at Coronado, the Coronado Park area. We looked at the University of New Mexico area, and this site also came up as part of the community conversation. So as we went through the process, we began to have the conversations with the community and then ultimately with the stakeholders, in this case the University of New Mexico and the county, et cetera. And we ended up here at this facility. And this facility is, as the mayor said, is a super important facility, just simply because it already has a lot of the services that are needed for the community to move forward. But what's most important for us, and as we move forward with utilizing this facility, is continue to have the dialogue with the community, with our neighborhoods. And that's going to be the next step in this process. Now that we have the facility under our belt, if you will, we are now going to begin to engage the community as a whole, the whole city, but also the neighborhoods here, looking at working at potentially putting together good neighborhood agreements. We know that these facilities are challenging facilities to locate. You all know that. We see that happening across the city as we had this conversation over the past year. But beginning to engage the neighborhoods and helping them get a sense that we're going to provide a service here that'll help improve the community, but also will be mindful of the impact that this facility may or may not have on the neighborhoods. So we're going to move forward with a lot of community conversations, especially with this area of the city. The other piece of it that we did that was really super important in moving forward with this whole endeavor of creating a comprehensive system for dealing with homelessness is we created this group called the Housing Coordinating Council and the Homeless Coordinating Council. And it was a council that really brought the city of Albuquerque, our partners Bernalillo County, and the University of New Mexico together to begin to have conversations, quite frankly, at a very timely time in this process of looking at this facility, having conversations about laying out the comprehensive strategy as how do we begin to deal as a community, not just the city, but with the county, with the University of New Mexico, our partners in working with those entities to create a comprehensive system of safety for our homeless folks. And so as a result of those conversations, we brought in the discussions with the providers, all the providers that are in the community that are providing services right now. Folks like, healthcare for the homeless, other folks like that are out there in the community that provide Barrett House and many others who are providing services now but are at capacity. Bringing them together into the conversation so that our elected officials, the mayor, the county commissioners, the president of the university and her staff, so that we can all form a cohesive approach, a comprehensive approach to dealing with homelessness. And quite frankly, I got to tell you, it's been a great success. Not only have we been able to have frank and candid conversations about what we're doing that works and what we're doing that may not work so well, but also just the mere fact that we're sitting at the table having these conversations and looking to help each other. Classic partnerships here, and you'll hear the mayor talk about this, the county stepping up and helping us with the acquisition of this facility. That is part of what bringing people together does and what a spirit of collaboration and working together can help. The University of New Mexico looking potentially at this site for additional services from the hospital portion of the university's healthcare system. That's how you build a coalition, a program that comes together and works together. And I'm so proud of the work that we've done with that, with the leadership of the mayor, the leadership of the Bernalillo County, our county manager, Julie Morgasbachel, our president of the university, President Stokes, and her staff. Look, this is working together and coming together in a way that will make a huge impact to this community. And look, there's still a lot more to be done. This is the very beginning. I told the mayor last week, look, now the real work starts today. Now that we have this facility under our belt, now the real work to get people together and to begin to continue to develop the system of care is really the most important part and what will take some time to get done. And we'll continue to look at how we use our existing facilities, how we incorporate our providers into the system so that we have the best opportunities to serve the community as a whole. So with that, I will turn it back over to the mayor and he will talk a little bit more about some of the other folks that have been helpful in this process. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Lawrence. And Lawrence mentioned the county's role in this and that true kind of one Albuquerque, one Bernalillo spirit. We're so grateful to be partnered with the county in a lot of different ways. And this facility is no exception. They were able to put in a significant amount of money into helping make this happen, but also through participation in that coordinating council, we are aligned in a way that the city and the county government on homelessness has never been before. And that's a good thing for everyone who lives in central New Mexico. And we're fortunate to be joined by the county commissioner who represents this area. And we're going to hear a few words from her. And we really appreciate what a wonderful breath of fresh air she has been on a lot of issues, and also even generationally in many ways, and someone who we're just grateful to have representing, the largest section of Bernalillo County in Albuquerque. So in many ways, she's kind of like Albuquerque's commissioner, Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you so much, Adrienne Barboa here. First, I'd just start by saying, if you grew up in Burque, then you know or love somebody who has needed services that this facility will provide. If you grew up in Albuquerque, then you know and love somebody that this facility could be providing services to. I myself, I was raised by strong, smart, and very loving women, my grandmother, my mom. And that's how they taught me to lead with love. And whenever somebody in our family needed something or were facing problems like addiction or facing hunger, that's where we surrounded. That's where we put our resources, where we put our love. And that's why I'm proud that this community is here, that we're building this here in our district, in our neighborhood that I grew up just down the street from. And when our families come together and say, we're investing in these folks, then the cost that comes from investing in these people, in folks that are needing that support and love at that time, that means that benefits us, all of us. When my uncle, my very own uncle, was facing addiction and he was on the streets, and we actually couldn't find him for a while. And my mom, we finally found him, and my mom found him. She took him in to her house, and she did that. She fed him, she loved him, she reminded him of his value. And within a couple of months, he was on his feet at his own little studio apartment and was back to living the life that he deserved, that my loving uncle who helped raise me deserved. And the same when I was steps away, a paycheck away as a single mom from being homeless. If it wasn't for my family who took me in while I was on that Bernalillo County affordable housing wait list, I would have been one of those folks living out of my car with my 2 kids. But thankfully, as somebody that grew up here, I had family to help support me while I was on that waiting list, waiting for that housing assistance. So that's what this center represents for me, right here in the heart of Southeast, right here on one of our main arteries here in the Southeast Albuquerque, is that this is the center for love, support, resources that are going to support our families, some of our most vulnerable community members, because they deserve it and all of us deserve it. These are our neighbors, and I'm proud that this is in our district. Thank you for this time.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And here also from the county, of course, is our county manager. And she really, of course, puts all the details together, along with Lawrence and Sarita and our team here. And we're fortunate to have a real steady hand on all things Bernalillo County. And so want to welcome Julie Morgasbachel.
Good afternoon, everybody. The first thing I want to say is that on behalf of the Commission and the county, we are super proud to be a part of this. And I truly mean that. You have taken a monumental step in addressing this. You're not ignoring it. Your Commissioner Barboa, she made it real. And thank you for doing that, because it's life and we're not ignoring it and we're moving forward. And I just want to thank the people at the city that we've been working with, you know, Lawrence, Sarita, Lisa. You know, we've got to do this together, like, no doubt. I also know that it takes the legislature to help us, and you'll be hearing from the senator on that. But it does take it takes a village, as they say. But let me just say, Mayor, you are not alone. We're here to support you. We want to help you. In fact, tonight we'll be allocating the $1 million to the city for this project, for this very, very worthy project. And Commissioner Barboa, she stepped up to the plate and said, I want to sponsor this and I want to be a part of this. So that's what will be happening tonight. And again, it's just a very, very proud day for the county as well. So thank you so much, Mayor, for letting us be a part of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner, and we're so grateful for that investment that folks are going to make tonight. Now, let's see. I do want to touch on the state, of course. We're fortunate to be joined by a state senator, and she, in her former life, was the city clerk, so great job with that. got out just in time to avoid the mayoral election cycle. But seeing Senator Duhig's, career in the legislature, this was her first session, and she just did a tremendous job. Many of you will recognize her from pictures in the paper. And so she accomplished a whole lot. But one thing that has not been discussed is her efforts, along with several of her colleagues, to help fund this facility. You didn't hear a lot about capital outlay and so forth, because there was a lot going on in the session. But I'm grateful to say that Senator Duhig led the charge to help make this a reality in terms of what we have to do going forward to do rehab and other investments with respect to homelessness and homeless service facilities here in Albuquerque. And so I want to welcome, really on behalf of all the legislators who helped on this project, Senator Katie Duhig.
Thank you, Mayor. And as I was talking to folks in my district, I heard concerns about homelessness over and over and over again. And I know that it's not just a concern in my district, it's a concern citywide and really for all of central New Mexico. And as both the mayor and the commissioner both touched on, this is really about compassion and working together in a collaborative way to find effective solutions. And so I know that when the last study about homelessness was done in Albuquerque, it was clear that Albuquerque needed to take action and that we couldn't just sit back and watch. And that's even more true now with COVID-19, which has shaken our community and left more women and more children affected by housing insecurity. The more folks that we can get into secure housing, the better our entire community is as a whole. And so this project is going to have a real and direct impact. It's going to give more people a safe place to shelter and heal, and connect them with resources that are going to lead to long-term stability. I'm thrilled to see the city and the county taking this step, and I look forward to continuing to support the Gateway Center and the continued collaboration between the city, the county, the community, and all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. There's obviously lots of details that we're going to work out, and we're fortunate the city to have two women involved in figuring out all those details. And so I think most folks know Carol Pierce, the director of our Family and Community Services Department, and I think she's going to speak today. Of course, also here I want to acknowledge Lisa Huval, our deputy director for housing and homelessness. And these two women, I just want to say that they, first off, we didn't even have Lisa's position when I came into office. I mean, there wasn't even a city division of homelessness. And so that was an institutional investment we made. And then we also wanted to have leaders in our city who prioritize this area, this challenge. And Lisa and Carol fit that bill. And also during COVID, they have literally worked tirelessly to take care of hundreds and thousands of folks who are unhoused. And many have now found services and housing because of these two women. And so we're very grateful. So let me bring up Carol Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor. Homelessness is a concern here in Albuquerque and throughout our nation. And acquiring Gibson Medical Center will help us build that system of care. This is not about a site, this is about a system. And that system exists today, and it's about connecting people to services. It is about creating more affordable housing in our community. And it's helping people locate that housing and helping them pay for those expenses, and also providing rental assistance. And I'm really proud to announce, with the leadership of Deputy Uval, along with partnering with the state, we now have $21.6 million available in rental assistance. That's through the Treasury Department. And the county also has resources for rental assistance. This is all about the partnership to really protect vulnerable people. You can go to renthelpnm.org or more easily call 311 for more assistance. We just want to say the system is what's important. We don't stand alone. We stand with our partners, so many of them that have been mentioned today. So the Gateway Center, being one of the centers, will be located here and will help meet many critical needs. You've heard a little bit mentioned about medical respite. That is a big gap in our community right now, and that can really assist people, our neighbors who are unhoused, who may be discharged from a hospital and need a place to heal. But this, as I'm mentioning, is just one piece of this puzzle. It's a piece of the system. So we are really looking forward to continue the partnerships that you've heard here today with the county, with UNM, with the state, and with many of our nonprofit organizations in town to build this well-rounded, robust system of care for our neighbors who are unhoused. Thank you.
Okay, I think let me wrap things up with a couple of closing remarks. Number one, I do want to talk about the Gibson corridor. And if you look between the freeway and the Air Force Base and our Gibson Road, which of course for a long time was the main road to the airport, the world is going to look a lot different in this entire section of our town. And it's not because of this project. It's because of the one just 2 streets down. So we sent down to council yesterday, of course, the lease agreement for the Orion project. We kind of New Mexico-ize Orion. So that project is interestingly coming in conjunction with this one. So we're going to be reactivating this facility. And again, as the commissioner mentioned, a facility that was already in place literally for generations of New Mexicans. But we're also adding 2,000 high-paying jobs, beginning with construction and then over time right down the street at the Orion project. And so all of a sudden, you know, this area of Southeast Albuquerque is just where a lot of action is, a lot of job growth, a lot of economic development. And also want to mention that we are just a runway away from Mesa del Sol. And if you pair these projects and so forth, I think we're going to see a massive expansion in housing over at Mesa del Sol as well. So that's just a little bit about what's occurring in this particular region, interestingly at the same time. Now, I also want to mention the following. There is a kind of iconic lobby, and if you do want to take a look at it, I think we can arrange your cameras to go look at a lobby that, again, that many New Mexicans remember and still looks the same and is just pretty cool. So we're going to keep it iconic. But let me close with a little bit of a reminder. Again, there are roughly 5,000 people experiencing homelessness or unsheltered versions of their lives in Albuquerque. We know that right now we've been able to shelter 900 on the west side and on multiple wellness hotels. And we know that at our last point in time count, we had a needed capacity of 500 beds, 500. So this is a major step in dealing with that, but it obviously takes a full spectrum, and especially housing vouchers. I want to mention that our hope is always somebody might stay here for a week and then they get a housing voucher. That is always the first thing we want to try with individuals. But each individual's situation is different. And so this Gateway Center allows us essentially a clearinghouse where we can match the right service and the right solution with the individual's situation. And that's something you just cannot do on the street. I also want to mention that there's no silver bullet to homelessness. So we know and believe that over time this is going to help all over central New Mexico. But we also know that there is no one solution. It takes a spectrum of solutions, and it takes a long, dedicated effort to make that happen. And so we're going to continue that effort, whether it is through vouchers, whether it is through behavior and mental health services, whether it's through smaller projects like supporting tiny homes or supporting our continued distributed supportive housing project throughout the city. So today's acquisition is really a reflection of the biggest hole in that spectrum of services for Albuquerque, which is short-term emergency beds. And now we will work on the other holes in the system. And I would really just wrap up, I think, by saying that, you know, I believe in Albuquerque we can do better than just allowing someone to live on a street corner. I know we can do that. I know we have dozens of service providers who are ready and willing to help people. And they have extra capacity. They are not maxed out. I know that we have extra beds on the West Side shelter. I know that there are vaccines there. I know that there's testing there. I know that there's healthcare there. And so I know that in almost every single situation, there is a better place, a safer place, a healthier place, a better place for long-term actually finding housing than just someone sitting on the street. And this facility enables us to deliver on that for those who are willing going forward. So with that, we will take questions from folks. And then also, I think, Lawrence, can we do a little, Puff Leon, as his real name is, can take folks inside if you want to see that lobby. Questions? Sure.
So much of our homeless population is centrally located. I mean, downtown, along Central, Nob Hill. So how are we going to get those folks into this facility? Because it's not exactly nearby.
Well, the question about everyone's centrally located, I think there's a couple of aspects to that. Number one is we do have a shuttle actually that takes people all to different services already. So we're going to use that shuttle. It's with the Veterans Integration Center. It's our community support service shuttle. And also recall, we now spend a lot of money busing people to the West Side. So we're going to change up that whole circuit so that folks can get dropped off in different places. So the good news is we actually do have a transportation method in place. It just has to be modified. The second thing I would say is, unfortunately, our unsheltered community is not centralized downtown. It is all over town, even on the West Side, even in the far Northeast Heights. That's how big the problem is. Jessica?
So how much have you set aside for remodeling? What do you have $15 million purchase price? Remodeling, what's the timeline? And is there anything built in for sort of the neighborhood supports, maybe extra security? Are you budgeting for that?
Sure. So we're going to work with our partners, so the Healthcare for the Homeless, Hope Works, Heading Home, and others, Barrett House, and also a lot of the faith-based community who works on this. And we're basically going to come up with how we're going to work on all these costs. Because we also know with the county, there's behavioral health services and so forth. So we're going to get together and map out how we're going to do that. The good news is we do have funding available. So out of that 21 million, you just subtract the 15 million for the purchase price, and that's what's on the table for everything that you mentioned, including community supports and services, fencing, all of the different things that we may need. And that's really the goal of the summer and the fall. And so really what we're looking at here is to move past this question of where, right? No matter how you feel about it, we've answered that question, right? It's in a lot of places all over the city, but it's also here. And so now we can actually get to work on answering that. And we'll do that in a public process, also through our Housing Coordinating Council, which of course is open to the public and a joint effort between city and county UNMH. So stay tuned on more details for that. Anything else you guys want to add? All right. Sure.
Based on the latest numbers, it looks like Bernalillo County is not going to be hitting green this week. What is your reaction to that, and kind of what does the county need to do to get in that right direction?
Sure, we are estimating, we'll see, our estimates are always unofficial. The state has the final word, but we do not think we're going to go green tomorrow. And we believe right now what we're experiencing is we're essentially flatlining on one of the two metrics, right? So on the positivity rate, we're still doing good. We think it went up slightly, like 2 or 3%. Again, 0.2 or 3%. So we're okay on that, and that's good. People still need to keep getting tested. But we know that the number of positive cases per 100,000 is really flattening out. So I think we were at like 9.8. We think we're going to be about 10. So again, it just crept up a little bit. And we know this is happening in a lot of places, not just Bernalillo County. So here's what this means for Burqueños, folks in central New Mexico. Number one, we've stated over time that whenever you're the urban center for a rural state, and actually rural parts of Arizona, Texas, and Colorado also, we always knew it was going to be harder to get out of this, right? Because everyone is coming in here. Whether it's for, I'll just wait for the airplane there. Whether it's for school going back in, whether it's for healthcare, that now elective healthcare is opening, whether it's for sports tournaments, this was expected. And I think the good news is flattening, we're okay with. Because we know as vaccinations come in, especially starting this week, eventually the vaccinations are going to take care of that. So I believe at the end of April, beginning of May, we'll be green. But it's really because of vaccinations. And if there's a hang up in that vaccination process, it's going to be a real challenge for us. So we've got to have everyone continue to get vaccinated, sign up to the site, and I think we'll be okay. I do want to mention this. There's always kind of a grass is always greener argument in Albuquerque for good reason. There are cities all over the country that are in much, much worse shape, right? And we're seeing places like in Michigan up 200% for positive cases. So I will tell you, all things considered, we feel comfortable that we're staying where we're at because we believe those vaccinations will keep driving that rate down in the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. We're very glad that we didn't see a huge spike, and it's a credit to our town in the vaccination effort. Yeah.
Do you have a breakdown of the funding sources?
That's a good one. There's a lot of them. $1 million from the county, $14 million from the voters and city council. The state totals, we're still totaling up. So we'll say probably a hair under $1 million, I think, when we add it all up from the state. We also got some money from the governor. I think it was $900,000 2 years ago in that session. And so those are roughly the streams that we're looking at. But I would mention there's also flexible stimulus money that we got at the city and county level. So that's another thing we may use that may be more for programming. And then there's also $500,000 from those companies I mentioned, P&M and New Mexico Mutual and others. Any others I missed?
And then the 5 we put in the budget this year.
Yes, and of course for operating, remember from a budget perspective, we have to fully fund operations. And so we put in $4.7 million to operate the facility. But what you don't see in the budget is that's offset by the revenue we get. So there's about $1.9 million in revenue. So again, we'll look at this as a facility. Eventually, we hope to almost break even once we get all the leases out. So that's what this has the potential for, which is awesome. But those are different accounts. So you have to sort of budget for it, and then that gets reimbursed with the lease income. So we don't expect the actual operating cost to be nearly that much. The net operating cost is what we're funding right now. And the budgeted number is the total cost, not the net. A lot of some finance in there, but a good question. Yeah.
This might be jumping ahead a bit, but do you have any other locations in mind, kind of looking forward to other parts of the city, like you mentioned, it's all over?
Yeah, so as a reminder, we do believe that we need a distributed model for services, and we are committed to that. We know we're going to have to continue using the West Side Shelter. I mean, the reality is with 300 people living out there, that's 300 people who otherwise would be living on our streets. So we're going to continue to find and modify the best way to use that facility. We also know there's HopeWorks facility, which is downtown. Healthcare for the homeless, also downtown. We also know Barrett House is actually up in the Heights. And we're also looking at the Tiny Home Village, which is up in the Heights, and some other small pockets of land where we can do different things. There's even things like Serenity Mesa way out on the southwest. So we're committed to that model, and the irony is we already have it, right? A lot of people just don't really know all the different locations. So we're committed to that, and it goes back to we'll be able to service that through the transportation model that we've outlined.
Are you going to start using this place as soon as possible, or is there going to be like a big grand opening once everything's in place?
So we are using it literally now with respect to all those tenants up there, right? So we're trying to keep all the tenants that we can, and we feel comfortable about where we're at with that. And so the facility, again, right now is a third in use, and the city actually gets a big chunk of rental income for that. But we're also providing those services. So I'm just gonna look at the sign, but you can see there's a recovery center, there's a behavioral health treatment center, there's actually 2 behavioral health treatment centers in here already. So we're gonna continue to do that. So essentially the facility's already open. Those new facilities we're gonna really look at over the summer and the fall. And so that's because we wanna move in step with the community and in step with our partners.
Do you know how many beds yet or anything? I know you said you still haven't talked that out.
I mean, there's a total of a lot of beds in here. There's the total bed number is 300. or is that roughly about somewhere around 300? But remember, some are already used, some are used for different things. And so there's a wide range of beds that we'll want to utilize. But look, we want to match, really optimize across a couple of things. The most important thing is the need, and that's why I emphasize we need 500 beds in our community. So like, let's just be clear and acknowledge that need. But we also know that some of it's medical respite beds, right? Some of it is transitional beds for getting a voucher. And so we'll see what that range looks like. But we know we want to try and match demand as best as possible. And of course, with the services we have to provide. All right, anything else? I think we're pretty good. Okay, so check with this guy, Wave, Leon. He'll take you inside if you want to go inside. Thanks so much. Take care.